Guys, it's Sean Evans here from Back to the Movies, and the war rages on deciding between these two giant powerhouses of the industry when it comes to immersive cinema technology. Who is the most immersive, 4DX or IMAX? So what I'm going to do in this very video is try and cut through all of the arguments, all of the debate, and try to find a definitive winner. Now, first and foremost, 4DX is an experience like no other. The 4DX experience takes place in a specially designed theatre where you've got fans that blow wind around the auditorium, scents that come in so you can smell what's happening on the screen, motion seats that are calibrated to what you're seeing on screen so you can actually feel motions. You've got gusts of wind that hit the back of your neck through two holes in the back of the seat that simulate bullets or various other things that happen on screen. You've got leg ticklers that happen in certain fight sequences and certain comedic films. You've also got fog effects that pump into the auditorium when there's like a misty scene or a very murky or scary scene. You've also got bubbles that come down for animations, and you've also got snow. So there really is a full plethora of effects that happen within a 4DX auditorium. So as an overall experience, it's a theatrical experience, it's a theme park experience. You get mist in your face like displayed in this photo at certain elements. I remember going to see Shrek at Universal Studios, and when Donkey sneezed, you got blasted with this water mist. That was absolutely fantastic. It brought you into the film like never before. But 4DX isn't without its problems. Okay, so the main downsides of the 4DX technology I've listed here. So for example, studio input. Now, many studios don't actually get a say in the programming of the 4DX tech with their movies. It's usually left to a team of 4DX designers who will program the movie based on what they're watching and add in the program for the 4DX technology themselves, basically. Now, the one studio that does work directly with 4DX is Disney, and Disney have much more say in how the 4DX technology is adapted to their live action and to their animated movies, and it shows, because animated films, especially Disney and 4DX, is some of the most immersive theatre that you'll ever experience in your entire life. It really is on another level compared to any other 4DX experience. Maintenance costs is another thing that factors into the equation, because it costs a lot to keep the things running, to keep the scent machines topped up, to keep the motion chairs, as a good working standard. Those maintenance costs are often very high, and as a result you do get such things as limited scents, because many of the cinemas in the UK can only afford to have two in, or don't feel the need to spend for the full range of scents. In addition to that, you've got the maintenance of the fans that sometimes get so noisy that you can't even hear things that are on screen. It all comes down to maintenance and cost, and whether it's of value to that particular cinema. Now, the cinemas that I've been to, Birmingham and Manchester, is a completely contrasted difference. The one in Manchester is usually well maintained. You've got quiet fans, you've got scents, but still a limited range of scents. And the one in Birmingham, noisy fans, some things don't work, and throughout some experiences and films, some effects are even turned off. That might not even be a case of the 4DX programming to blame. It could be just the case of a cinema cutting costs to save money. What is to blame is certain uncalibrated seat motions within certain 4DX displays that absolutely send your seat going left when something on the screen is turning right, moving back and forward when no one's moving on the screen at all. And this is where 4DX are to blame for that programming error. That is quite hilarious to me, when a character or a car is turning left on screen and your seat is moving to the right. So I don't like that at all. In addition, sometimes it can go too far, such as in Hobbs and Shaw, where the seat went into overdrive. It's overkill. You are constantly prodded in the back. Every time something, a pane of glass broke, your leg tickler was going crazy, and a lot of glass is broken in that movie, so you're getting absolutely pelted from left to right with these various different effects. It was 4DX in overkill. In addition, the front end effects, the fog machines, the bubble machines, they're all down at the front of the screen. You never get the fog overhead. You never get the bubbles coming overhead. It's all at the front end of the screen. Now, the fog works perfectly if you're sitting near the back and you can see like a mist at the bottom of the theatre. That's really cool. But the closer you are, the worse this gets, because most of the times, to save money, once again, either the fog machines aren't working properly, or they're not well maintained, or they just don't pump out much fog at all. So it actually becomes like, it looks literally as though someone's smoking a cigarette at the front of the cinema. Sometimes it's that bad, whereas other times when the fog machines are working perfectly, you get the fans blowing it completely across the bottom of the screen, and it looks amazing. The bubbles come down at the front and you can barely see them from the back, but at the front the bubbles are very cool indeed. Now for water effects, they come down all the way around. You've got the water mist coming down from the ceiling, that's perfect, and the water mist that sprays in your face, that's right up in your face, close and personal, that's amazing. The snow for Frozen 2 came all over the auditorium as well, and the fans blew that all over the auditorium, but the fog and the bubble effects are certainly two of the weakest. They feel very gimmicky, and they could be vastly improved. If the fog came down overhead like a descending mist, or if the bubbles came down from overhead and completely showered the auditorium, I think that would be a much more immersive experience than having them at the front end of the theatre. So for animations like Frozen 2, where you're fully immersed into the story, to horror films where it really ramps up the tension, the jump scares, especially the scene in It Chapter 2 where the blood is rushing in the bathroom stall and you're getting pelted with water mist, very immersive. And from live action movies like Sonic, where you absolutely feel immersed into the story like never before, with a big grin on your face throughout. For live action, for animation and for horror, 4DX is absolutely perfect, but for action movies, car chase sequences and movies like that, it's not very good indeed. It's overkill, it's too much, it's not as immersive. It becomes to the point where the effects are becoming so distracting that you can't quite focus what's going on screen. Now IMAX is a little easier to cover because it is essentially just one giant curved screen, an absolutely immense size and scale, and IMAX was designed with the filmmaker in mind, to the point where even directors like Christopher Nolan were using IMAX cameras specifically to shoot such films as Dunkirk. Also, the first film to be fully shot on IMAX was Avengers Infinity War, and this film brought the scale to another level, where on a bigger screen you could see a bigger, fuller and wider camera angle, so you can see much more of the picture, which for a film like Infinity War is incredible. You don't want to miss anything from that amazing movie. Now the thing with IMAX for me is that when you go into the auditorium, you're always so close to the screen. Now this is speaking personally from Northern cinemas only, in Manchester specifically. For an IMAX cinema, you are so close to the screen that you're forever looking up, and I don't like that at all. But for the picture that you just saw previously at the BFI IMAX, you can see straight away that you're not as close to the screen as you are in Manchester, for example. So it does depend on location. For the north, for me, IMAX is way too close to the screen. In Manchester and in Cheshire Oaks, way too close, and it spoils it. Now for me, IMAX, the tech demo before the movie actually starts, is some of the most immersive theatre that I've ever seen in my entire life. You get a jet engine plane that takes off in front of you. The audio sound system in IMAX is incredible. The visuals on the screen are always incredible, but that seems to be the best thing about IMAX for me. As soon as the film starts, it's almost like a letdown, considering you've just watched this tech demo that's absolutely blown you away, to the point where the jet engines are literally shaking your seat because of how loud the vibrations are from the speakers. And then you're put into a movie like Dunkirk, for example, where yes, it looks amazing, you see the scale, you see the full panoramic view that the filmmaker intended, but it doesn't feel as immersive. The sound wasn't as immersive. My seat wasn't shaking as much. I didn't feel as though I was drawn into the film, whereas with certain things in 4DX, certain animations, definitely, for example, I feel as though I'm actually there with the characters experiencing it. Now for me, IMAX is certainly a grand scale film platform. So for any grand scale CGI spectacle, any big DC movie, any big Marvel movie, any big space movie, Ad Astra for example, Gravity, anything that's on a big scale with a big budget, that's got a lot to show, a lot of visuals, a lot of detailed set pieces, 1917, anything technical, I think IMAX hands down is the one to choose for your big grand scale grandiose performance, because you're not going to match that on a 4DX screen. You're going to get the effects, but you're going to be watching it on a tiny screen with basic sound, and you're not going to get as immersed as you would in an IMAX theatre. Now that is just for grand scale films. Any other normal film in IMAX just won't have the same effect. I went to see Logan, and whilst some of the action scenes were cool, it didn't feel as though it was on that bigger scale. For example, as in Infinity War, it's more toned down, there was more slower scenes, there was a lot of talking and narration in between the action scenes, and I felt kind of disjointed. I didn't feel immersed. So that's where IMAX does let people down if it's not as grand scale as your big blockbusters, which are few and far between. This year, for example, the one film that I'd 100% go and see in IMAX is Top Gun Maverick, because I can imagine that's going to be absolutely breathtaking. That will be one of the best cinematic experiences I think of the entire year. And in terms of 4DX, any animation that comes out or any Disney live action film that comes out, you want to watch it in 4DX, because the immersion is far more of what IMAX can bring. Okay, so let's just outline the cons. So we've got obstructed view in certain selected cinemas. The tech demo is usually far better than the actual feature itself. Most cinemas you're too close to the screen, which involves neck pain inducing looking up, cranking your neck for 2 hours, which is very uncomfortable. IMAX is only really for grand scale, big budget CGI blockbusters only, and there's a limited number of IMAX movies actually shot. So this is what, if you're still with me, 11 plus minutes in, let's finally see who my winner of this highly contested contest is. 4DX is my Back to the Movies winner for the most immersive cinema technology. You're probably screaming at your screen right now, why the hell has he just said 4DX when he's been bigging up IMAX for the last 5 minutes? Hear me out. 4DX is an immersive theatrical technology. Now, it's not 4DX's fault that some cinemas do not maintain their equipment. It is not 4DX's fault that some cinemas cut costs and do not include full working fans all the time, or top up their fog machines, or invest in new sets. If you go to a 4DX theatre that is fully invested and fully maintained, you're going to have the most immersive experience that you've ever had in a cinema ever. You cannot beat it. You're taking poor films, say for example The Rise of Skywalker, a film I absolutely hated, but when Kylo Ren and Daisy Ridley's Rey are fighting on the Star Destroyer with the sea, you've got the water coming down from the auditorium, every clash of the lightsaber, you are seeing strobe lights for every lightsaber clash, your seats are moving with the rocking motion of the waves. I was fully immersed in that scene. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I hated the movie. It takes ordinary films and makes them better. Now, this doesn't work in all cases. As you've noticed on my cons list, there's far more cons for 4DX, but most of them aren't 4DX's fault. They are the fault of the individual cinemas who just don't maintain their equipment, or don't want to invest or cut costs in order, to meet their demand. It's a business rather than catering to an experience. So that's not 4DX's fault. It's an immersive technology, guys. You go into an IMAX theatre, you watch a grand scale movie, it's bigger, the audio is better. Yes, it's immersive. But you go to a 4DX theatre that's working fully, and you're watching an animated movie like Frozen 2, and it's snowing in the theatre, your seats are moving, the strobe lights are going off as soon as the Disney logo comes up, and the whole cinema lights up with the strobe lit sort of immersive atmosphere. It's incredible. It really is incredible. Now, it's not always perfect. You get your Hobbs and Shaw movies where the 4DX is terribly calibrated. They do make a lot of mistakes, but there's a lot more that goes into completing and programming the 4DX tech than there is with the IMAX tech. That's just clear to see, and it's not always done correctly. But as an overall experience for me, personally, 4DX wins hands down every time. But only for certain genres. Your live action, your animations, your horror movies, it wins all day. If you compare it to grand scale big budget CGI movies, Infinity War, I'd choose IMAX all day, every single day. For grand scale, for an audio and visual, I'd choose IMAX all day. For an immersive cinematic experience, 4DX is my winner. Thank you very much, guys, for checking out. Please do leave your favorite in the comments box below. I know people might be against me on this one. Completely understandable. Totally subjective opinion right here. But I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you very much for staying with me this far. If you're still listening, hit the subscribe button. Comment below, of course. Like, hit the bell to be notified of future videos. And stay tuned for more content on Back to the Movies. I'll also leave a link in the description box below to my full text review of this very debate. Thank you very much, guys. I love you for staying this long. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.